outsmarting a narcissist, winning with a narcissist, or trying to beat the narcissist at their own game. These are concepts that you may hear a lot about in the pop culture. When you look at magazines, you may see articles about this kind of talk, beating the narcissist out or winning with them, outsmarting them. I think that this is actually the wrong goal. As a clinical psychologist who has counseled clients for over 20 years and written for Psychology Today for over 14 years, I have written a lot about narcissism in my career. I don't believe that this idea of trying to outsmart a narcissist is an effective strategy for people who are in relationships with someone narcissistic. That should not be, I believe, the goal, to try to win or beat them at their own game. This whole terminology just connotes this concept of two opponents. And that is a part of the problem. If people feel like when they try to communicate with narcissists, that the communication or the expectations or the treatment isn't fair and balanced, well, then trying to beat them out or win or outsmart them, that's just another version of the same thing that a lot of times people feel like the narcissist is trying to do with them. I don't believe that anybody treating another person as an opponent on an opposite team is going to be helpful, is going to be effective, or good for anyone's mental health. Now, when there are safety issues, I do strongly believe that people do need to put their safety first, and they need to do what they need to do to stay safe. And I believe if there are professionals that they need to consult for help on that, that's certainly something they can do if there are safety issues. But safety issues aside, so often when people are dealing with narcissists, they are talking about the emotional battles that they end up feeling like they fight with the narcissist. Now, what I do think is an effective strategy if you're dealing with someone in your life who is narcissistic is when you feel like you have tried everything, you have tried to communicate, you have tried to make things work, you have tried to collaborate, you have tried to be honest, well, then you can go to that narcissistic individual and say something along these lines. I have tried to communicate with you in a way that is functional, but I don't believe that we are communicating in a similar enough way. I don't believe we actually truly hear each other or really get how the other person feels. I don't believe that we're actually getting anywhere positive or effective when we try to talk about problems. I feel there is a disconnect between the two of us, and I don't believe that I know myself how we can solve it. I don't think it's helpful if I put negative labels on you or if you put negative labels on me. I do want to be honest here and say, I think that our communication, I think that the goals that we have for our communication, they seem to me to be different. Now, I'll step out of that sort of role play for a moment. One of the things that you can, of course, say to someone who's narcissistic, if you're in a personal relationship with them, whether a friend, a romantic relationship, a family member, you can, of course, say, let's bring in someone who is an objective third party, like a therapist, and try to talk to them. So maybe they can help us kind of learn to understand and hear each other better. Maybe they can help us with communication. If this is a work relationship, for example, and it's someone at work or a boss, well, you need to figure out what is going to be workable and good for your mental health. See, too often this concept of outsmarting the narcissist, it almost makes a person feel like, well, they need to start playing games and making chess moves that are similar to how they feel the narcissist is making certain moves with them. But this is what I want to point out, which is so important. When people stop being genuine about how they really feel and they start playing games with someone else, as you could make the mistake of trying to do with the narcissist, you can actually find yourself sort of losing touch with your own judgment, your own morality. You can find yourself engaging in tactics that may seem like control tactics or manipulation or even outright lying just to try to keep the peace, to try to outsmart the narcissist. But it's important to remember that there are individuals, third parties available to people who are dealing with narcissists and situations who can try to help. Ultimately, one of the things that I think is most helpful in dealing with a relationship when a person just feels like it's simply not working anymore is to say, is this a point at which I must detach to some extent? Emotionally detached to some extent? And if so, ask yourself, what might that look like? A lot of times people will think, oh, just leave them. Just walk away, whether it's a work relationship or a personal relationship. But the truth is, that's not always so feasible for so many people. That's not always possible. People can sometimes feel like they're in relationships that aren't easy to get out of quickly. So in those relationships, something that you can also do to try to protect your own mental health is to focus on the things that do work, to focus on the strengths of that person. And whenever situations arise that trigger conflicts or disagreements, to try to find a way to detach in the healthiest way possible. And then ultimately, what you are going to have to figure out, like so many people do ultimately end up having to figure out in a relationship with a narcissistic person, is, can this relationship continue? Can this relationship continue? All right. And I have other videos here on my YouTube channel under the playlist Narcissism Help that you can look to help gain a little better understanding of narcissistic personality that can help to inform some of the choices that you may make.